Good morning and welcome. Welcome guests, distinguished visitors, welcome Chancellor, and I was going to put the trustees first, but welcome trustees, welcome classified staff, faculty, and I think this might be live streamed. Welcome to anyone who's watching online. I didn't expect to find myself up here this morning, but I'm really happy that I'm going to be passing the baton along to Cleavon. All of us here, and our colleagues who couldn't be here, and our thousands of students, we make up the Peralta family. And I didn't know that right away when I would hear the word. I didn't feel it. But over the years, I really have this sense of a Peralta family. And as we lose people also, I think we feel it because we spend a lot of time with our colleagues and especially with our students. So it's just, I feel like I want to just acknowledge that here we are at the very beginning of the fall 17-18 year. We have our very first day of the semester. All right, thank you. Yay. We are at the beginning of the fall 17 and soon spring 18 year. And it's a special opportunity for each of us to do what we are here to do and to make this world a better place. So I want to remind everybody that there are classes. Some of you heard Lori Willis sing earlier. She teaches here in the music department. Her mom, Lucy Kinchin, contributed so much to our community. Yeah. So very few of us are going to be able to sing like her, but if you have some talent or you have something and you want to develop it, there are classes in the music department here, there are classes at all of our colleges that could be of interest. And faculty and staff have the opportunity to take classes tuition free. So that is just a reminder for you all. And without further ado, let's see, I have it somewhere here. Okay, here's my baton, and watch it go.
Good morning, everyone. Happy new school year. Most of us in this room, we are educators because we were the people who got really excited when August ads came out saying happy, like new school year, back to school sales. We were the ones who got really excited about getting our new pencils and erasers. And here we are together sharing, living that excitement into our adulthood and sharing that excitement with one another. I am thrilled to take this interim position as the staff development officer for this semester and really grateful for the work that Miriam has done. I thought it was really important that Miriam kicked us off and get us started because this program that we have before us today is her document, it is her program, and so I would like to just express thank you for her service over the last 2 years as the staff development officer. There are a couple of other pieces of information I'd like to share now immediately before I forget because our program is really packed. But most of you realized when you came in today that while there was a long line for the pastries and the coffee, there wasn't a similarly long line for signing in. And so I would like to give thanks to one of the teams from the Peralta Leadership Academy, the Chancellor's Peralta Leadership Academy members, Gary Alberry, Alejandro Tomas, Samantha Kiesler, Jamil Tier, Gail Pendleton, Chung Wai, Ranjit Rajin, and Jason Holloway. They are the ones responsible for the sign-in. And so No longer do we, hopefully we can continue this practice so that we don't have to spend a lot of manual hours, literally writing our names in over here and then going over to the district office and entering those names again. And from that same group, you should expect an email within the next couple of days, hopefully later today, if not today, before the weekend's over, for evaluations for this morning's program. And so as we begin, I would just like to highlight we will be following this agenda. It is a very packed agenda, and no apologies because everything that we are sharing with you today is really important. But we will adhere to it as best we can, mostly because we have a very important meeting following this. If you'll notice on the schedule for the Planning and Budgeting Council, we'll be meeting. They will be meeting in room A266. It's a special meeting of the Planning and Budgeting Council. So all council members, please show up for that. And it is also open to the public. And we also want to make sure that we get to our chancellor's address and give our chancellor as much time as possible, as well as our keynote. Our opening remarks we will start with, and as you'll see, the theme for today is putting our values into practice. And so the speakers up here today will share a lot with you about doing just that. The first person we have, I am happy to introduce. You can read her bios in the program, but Tenzin Selden is a Berkeley City College graduate. She's also a graduate of Stanford and continued on from Stanford as a Rhodes Scholar. And recently, Tenzin has started a startup, a high-tech startup called KinStep that connects immigrants with job opportunities using technology. They have been invited and featured on TED in this past year. And so I will like to cede my time for the bio for Tenzin. Rather than sharing more of her bio, I would just like for her to come up and share her story. And as you'll see, it's titled Building the Peralta Community Praxis. And please listen as you listen to what Tenzin is going to share. Think about how we're going to continue this conversation over the next semester, if not the next year and throughout, because that is our purpose for today. And so both of our speakers today, I will be working with the professional development officers at the campus to continue the conversation, to facilitate the inquiry, and put our values into practice. And so I would like to introduce Tenzin. Welcome Tenzin to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. Good morning, Chancellor Laguerre, the respective college presidents, the Board of Trustees, staff, faculty, and all of the students watching online. Every time I get a chance to come back to my roots, which I really believe, my educational roots, and the birth of my academic journey really began at a combination of few schools. And one of them was Laney College, actually, as well. Yes. Laney and Berkeley City College both. So two of the four colleges I've attended classes and really been able to set the foundation for what I believe success in my trajectory was able to look like. I remember when I first started community college, one of the students said to me, "We here at community college have been given a chance to always recreate ourselves, to always define ourselves by the best in us." And I couldn't help but think back to my years and my time in my lifetime. My history, it wouldn't be fair to leave that out. I was born and raised as a refugee. I lived in India for most of my life. My parents walked through the Himalayas, dodging soldiers' bullets to make it to India. And I was fortunate enough to be born in a free country where I had the right to live freely, and I had the right to hold a picture of my spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. Those are crimes that my family can be persecuted for in my community and in my country in Tibet. And those are the crimes that there's a culture of impunity for. My mother in 1991 won the US lottery to come to the United States of America. Many of you may have never met a lottery winner, but I am a product of a lottery winner. And my mother and I had to disunite to be away from each other for a decade because it takes that long in America to become a naturalized citizen. And after 10 years of being apart, of thirsting for the other parent, I was able to come back to America and have a reunification. And here in America, I was called an Asian American. And this was a term that was so unfamiliar to me because the same America that had Japanese Americans as one of the richest class is the same America that had Tibetans and Hmong people as one of the poorest. So I thought, I'm expected as a student here, as an asylum seeker and refugee to this country, that I'm expected to do well. And yet, this entire country's story is not on my side. But I was still able to do fine in high school, and I was unable to afford a four-year college because my family and I are first generation, low income. And so this is where I thought America differed than many other countries that I've ever lived in. And that was the community college education. My peers, my family back home in Tibet and India can only dream of what a community college can mean, can only dream of recreating a life for themselves. And I am able to do that, and my peers at Laney and Berkeley City are able to do that every single day of our life. So I always tell to them, please do not complain, because what you have here are a lot of privileges that many people in the world, including myself in the past, were not able to afford. And I think it's a reminder to the staff and faculty that you may be the first person that someone like me ever interacts with meaningfully. You may be the first adult, the first mentor I may have ever had in my life. And that's a moral responsibility that you must carry with grave seriousness. My trajectory from Laney to Berkeley to then Stanford, and then going on to be the first Tibetan American Rhodes Scholar. Taught me a lot of lessons, but the most important thing it taught me was a growth mindset. That you must always learn to grow yourself and to improve yourself. So with that ethos in mind, today I just want to capitulate on some of the key experiences that I had here and ways that we can improve it together as a community. The ways together we can ensure that every student has the opportunity to also become a Rhodes Scholar if they wish, to go into work at the United Nations if they wish, to go start a startup if they wish. And I think that befalls on every single one of us. The first point, and I think it's an important point, is the role of mentorship, as I talked about. Oftentimes, since I've come back to Peralta College to share of my experience, I always talk about this gentleman named Victor Flint. And I won't stop talking about Victor Flint, because Victor was one of the first administrators that I met at a community college who said, "You can do it, Tenzin." I remember I went to the college counselor's office and I said I wanted to transfer to Stanford. And he said, "Where do you want to transfer to?" And I said, "I want to transfer to Stanford." And he said, "Well, in all of our years, I don't know of anyone who transferred to Stanford. Why don't you try for UC Berkeley?" That is a conversation that's not justified. And I went with that attitude and perspective, and I went to Victor and I said, "Well, the counselor told me that I should just aim at UC Berkeley, but my heart tells me that I have the capacity to go to Stanford." And Victor sat me down and said, "You do, and you will go there, and we will make sure." And that exact moment, he actually called up the Stanford transfer admission officer and talked to them about what was needed. What were the criteria that I needed to meet? And you can be that one person. You can be that one Victor, because I know that changed my life. Peralta College has a unique chance to make sure that the pipeline between that student like me who goes to a professor to a Victor Flint, who was my employer at the time, could be more congruent. I had to repeat my story multiple times, and this is something I never had to do at Stanford or Oxford, because the moment I walked into Stanford, the counselor to the professor knew my dreams. They knew I wanted to become a Rhodes Scholar. And because of that, they were able to amplify me. They were able to give me the opportunities I needed. So if we could do a better job collectively as a community to make sure that the pipeline and the congruency is the same, that every student, regardless of if you're part or full-time, is met with the level of care where they can have that professor and the counselor speak to one another and know what the aspirations of the student is. We can have many more students who I'm sure would be very delighted and who would be set on the right learning outcome. It shows that around 80% of at-risk youth, 80% is a number, it's staggeringly high, that 80% of at-risk youth decided to go to a college because of a mentor versus the 25%. And as now a startup founder and entrepreneur, the one thing I rely on is my connections. The one thing I rely on is the connections and the people and the mentors I made at Stanford, Oxford, and community colleges. And the number is actually 50. A lot of research shows that it takes 50 mentors in a course of a student's life to when they become adults for them to succeed. Community college can be the best training ground for that. Let's build 5 to 10 even. What I did immediately here was build a family. So I took classes with Professor Roger Chung. I'm not sure if he's here. Oh, oh my God, Roger. It's amazing. I took classes with Professor Roger Chung, who literally shaped the way I thought about Asian America. And I'm so grateful and honored that you're here in this class, because I remember also communicating with you how important it was for me to go to Stanford. And it was people like him as well who made sure that I had a role model outside of my peers that were incredibly important. So if we can set up more structures in place for both formal and informal ways of streamlining the process of mentorship, I think it really could transform every student's journey. The second is the Peralta Community College ethos that I was talking about. I had to go all the way to Thailand and Burma working as a diplomat to find that out. I spent the last 2 years working at the United Nations on helping people with disabilities and also with migrant youth. And there, after 6 months of spending time with my boss, Aiko Akiyama, I found out that she was also a Laney College graduate. Six months, though. One day over lunch, we're talking about our history, and she goes, "Oh, I went to UC Berkeley." I said, "Oh, you did?" "Oh, I went to community college, Berkeley City College." And she said, "It used to be called Vista." And so I knew then, she definitely knew what she was talking about. And she said, "I am a product of Laney College." And I thought, my boss, who's an international diplomat, and I've been working with her every single day, what are the chances that I come to Thailand, of all the places in the world, to meet a community college graduate? So it made me think first, one thing was I was remiss at the opportunity that we collectively do not have a strong trajectory of the alumni network. Can we please do more for that? Because it would have been really helpful for me to know going in that Aiko was going to be my boss. It would have been really helpful knowing that we had this shared common experience and that we could probably enable the students from Peralta who were in Vietnam, who were in Burma, who were in China, who were in Korea. We have the most diverse population We have some of the finest stories walking in the corridors, and yet after they leave, we don't keep in touch with them. If we can find better ways to capitalize on their stories and to make sure that after they leave, whatever that may be, whether that's even a LinkedIn, two-sentence LinkedIn post saying that I went to community college, I went to Laney or Berkeley, that would be so helpful. And I think what that would also enable to students here is that here's what you can look like 5 years from now. Here are the faces and the jobs you can have. Because it was empowering to know that my boss and diplomat, Aiko Akiyama, was a Laney College graduate. That was powerful for me, because every other person at the UN has studied at Yale and Harvard. So that was very powerful for me to see that. And I think our students, my peers, need to also see that. So I encourage and challenge this community to make sure that we capitalize and retell and share the stories of what a community college graduate looks like. Because I tell you, in my many years of academic studies, and it's not over yet because I'm planning on getting a PhD. In my many years, I have never been in halls more diverse. I have never had conversations so rich. But sometimes I wonder if those conversations only stay within the halls. I think we can, as a collective community, do also a better job of making sure that the pedagogies that we're teaching to our students are reflective of their experiences. In technology, I always say that every person in Silicon Valley is trying to build a product that they have no membership of. They're trying to lead communities that they have no membership of. They're trying to build global products without the global experience. And I always say to my fellow entrepreneurs, some of who've raised millions of dollars, have clients that are enormously successful, I say to them, the power of the local experience is so important. You know, when they say, when they go low, we go local. And I really believe that even at Roger Chung's class, I had former incarcerated adults who've gone through the community college pipeline come and speak to us. And Laney has so much to offer in terms of the credibility, the stories, the narratives that are right now imploding in the United States. So if we can also collectively do a job of ensuring that every single class we teach has a pedagogy that's creative, that's local, that can bring in the speakers, I think that would really also catalyze us in a different way. Because I know that those experiences at Oxford, for example, it wasn't as relevant. Like, I'm very grateful to my education at Oxford, but I'm most grateful to the foundation at a community college, where I was able to hear what activism can look like, where I was able to see what Dr. King's words can actually mean in the local streets. And if faculty members can capitalize and can ensure that that is integrated into every single curriculum, every class you teach, you can remember that you may be the first mentor. You may be the first meaningful adult that they interact with. And your pedagogy, your curriculum, could be the first curriculum that could change the mindset of that student. It did for me. As I said, Roger's class totally transformed my ability to understand what it means to be an Asian American in the United States and what it means to be a community leader, a local leader. And that's why I even tell my tech entrepreneur friends now that KinStep, which is connecting immigrants and refugees like me and my family to job and employment opportunities, that is very much a local problem, and that is one that I've had proximity to, and I know that many of my peers, including Esteem, who's standing right over there, Esteem Brumfield, we all have had those experiences, and if they were better demonstrated in our classes, I think our collective learning outcomes can be better. And the last point I would like to make is the point about gratitude. I think that oftentimes, as I said earlier on, my peers, my friends who went to school with me here at Berkeley City and at Laney, and now who are alumni of these colleges, realize how critical of a role a community college played in our lives. Even now, as I'm a startup entrepreneur, I was invited to TED this year, and I kept emphasizing to every single person I met there that America and the community college education pipeline is what gave me the voice that I have today. It taught me that it was okay if I didn't have the beginning that everybody else did. But the most important was that I can always create my ending. I can always rebrand my ending. I may not have any choice in where I was born. I may not have a single choice in how I was raised, but I have a choice now. And I'm so proud that you all have been part of our trajectory. And I want to express my deepest gratitude for enabling that and for cultivating the environment where students like myself can feel safe to voice our opinion, because that's something that is not extended to us right now in many parts of America and in the world. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. And I hope that we all collectively ensure that this community always gets better, because there is absolutely no size and limit to growth and to what we can do together. Thank you so much.
And thank you. And actually, because Tenzin's address was a little shorter than we allotted time, I would like to welcome her back and to field some questions from any of you all, if you have, for how to actualize the challenge that she has actually just laid for us today. So Tenzin, you mind coming back? And okay. So the question, if I may, ideas from Tenzin about how do we tap into and connect with our alumni?
Well, I think one of the ideas that I gave early on is using technology to make sure that we're connected. Stanford and Oxford both have such visibility online. I mean, I get an email from Stanford every other day. And yes, it can get a little bit tiring, but it's a good reminder for them to showcase the types of students, the type of alumni network. If we can have a stronger presence online, via LinkedIn, via online Peralta sites, I think that would be a start, because we do have students and alumni in many countries. I've seen them all across, sub-Saharan Africa to Asia, and obviously Northern and Southern America as well. That would be one. The second way, I think, is starting to create that ethos early on. Maybe having more avenues and community building exercises here on campus. Other than maybe few groups like student government and student ambassadors program, I find that my experience, I will only speak to what I experienced, was that there weren't any other ways that I felt students who were not connected to those issues felt a part of the Berkeley City or Laney community. And if we could do even more activities, peer-to-peer counseling, mentorship, something like that, where they feel indebted and then they feel like they want to give back to this community, I think that could be another way as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. You spoke about the conditions in Tibet and said that you've visited twice, is that correct? Well, sadly, I've never been to my own country, and I'm reduced to a minority in my own country. And I also believe that stories like mine, and there are actually quite a lot of Tibetans in Berkeley City College and in Laney College and in the College of Alameda. I really believe that the Tibetans who go through the system oftentimes are unable to share their stories because of the cultural and historical trauma that's attached to it. We literally, some of us, had to take guns and kill our own parents or kill our own spiritual teachers, forced by the Chinese government. So you can imagine what that does to your genes. Epigenetics shows that trauma is passed through lineage and has passed through generations of people. So I probably still carry some of that trauma gene in me. And the most healing thing we could do for each other is to listen. And if we can provide greater spaces in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms, in our hallways, to listen to each other, I think we can heal. That's how I've been able to heal. Was actually, first started sharing my story for the first time in my life was at a community college with friends like Esteem. But before that, nobody listened, nobody asked, nobody cared. At least it felt like it. So I think that's the most healing thing we can do, is to share our stories. Yes, I think the people in Tibet hold on to the moral courage and fabric that has been passed on by our leadership, the Dalai Lama. We've been fortunate enough to have a leader who absolves himself of all of the political responsibilities, who makes sure that democracy is not something that's just a namesake, that's an actual practice. I'm very grateful now to have a leader like that, who is the moral fabric of our country and perhaps even the world.
Up next is Rachel Goodwin, and as Tenzin was sharing before, just getting to know the dreams of our students. We have so many different marginalized student groups in Peralta Community College District, and one of those marginalized groups, and often a silent group of students, is our DSPS students. And so Rachel is going to share with us how we can get to know who they are and what she knows, and how we can better engage our DSPS students.
Well, I didn't know when I said yes to this that I was going to be following such a wonderful presentation, which of course puts me in a position of feeling a little on the spot, but that's okay. So I'm Rachel Goodwin. I am the DSPS coordinator at College of Alameda. I'd like to just briefly, I don't know if they're here, but I'd like to introduce our other DSPS coordinators, the folks that run our programs. At BCC, we've got Wendy Franklin. I don't know if she's here. And at Merritt College, we have Frances Moy. Okay. And there's Frances. Okay. And I'd also like to take this moment, in case anybody missed this information, but just to acknowledge Ms. Marion Martin from Laney College, our colleague, DSPS coordinator and counselor, who passed away on June 24th. So that's been a big loss for Laney College and for all of us in this community. And so I just want to mention her and just keep her in your thoughts, and watch for the GoFundMe opportunities and scholarship opportunities that are in the pipelines and that are possibly coming down the road. So. All right, so sort of the tagline that you can see in the handout there is, who are our students? What are their rights and responsibilities? And when we're talking about DSPS students, I think it's really important to know that we're talking about a very diverse group of students, as diverse as our campuses, more diverse in many ways. There is no one-size-fits-all. There's no one-size-fits-all in how we accommodate these students or what these students' experiences are as they come to us. These students come from every ethnic and cultural background, every socioeconomic background, and their disabilities range from things that they've had since birth. So a student may have been born deaf or blind or both, or needing a wheelchair, or have a degenerative disorder, or have a learning disability that they've grown up with and that has been addressed in some way or another throughout their youth. It can be something that maybe they've had but that was never diagnosed. Many of the students that you see in your classrooms may have come all the way through the K through 12 programs without ever having been diagnosed with an existing learning disability. And so, thank you. And so it's really important to acknowledge the fact that when you see something, say something. If you see a student struggling, I had a student in my office yesterday, and he was at a 4-year institution, and it was one of his English teachers who said, you've got good ideas here. I see what you're saying. But the way you're putting this down on paper doesn't express it. And have you ever been diagnosed as having a learning disability? Have you ever been tested? And it was the first time at 20 years old this young man had ever heard that. And it explained a lot about the grades he was getting at his 4-year university. The student was disqualified from his university. And the instructor had said to him, what I really encourage you to do is go back to the community college. Go to a community college, get tested, see what's going on. And the student actually went to Merit, and he said it really turned him around. He went, he got tested, he took some of the support classes, and he's now working on returning to four-year university. So we've got those students. And then we have students who come to disability later in their life. This could happen through a traumatic event like a car accident, which could leave a person with mobility disabilities. It could leave them with traumatic brain injuries. It can happen through illness, cancers, heart disease, as well as things like military service. We have a lot of returning veterans who are coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as possible amputations and other physical disabilities. So we've got a huge diversity of students, and they come in all ages, shapes, sizes, colors, and with all kinds of different needs. And so the first thing I want you to know is that as DSPS, our role is really to first sit with those students, listen to them, and learn what their experiences are. See what it is that they struggle with so we can start looking for the opportunities to close the gaps, okay? We aren't here to change curriculum. We're not here to make it easier to get through school from the standpoint of watering down the education or changing what it is that you teach. Rather, what we're looking at is equal access. And when we talk about all kinds of things, every one of us wants to have an equal opportunity to show what we can do in whatever field we're going into and whatever our goal is, whether it is we have students that are working on certificates, associate's degrees, students that want to transfer to Stanford. We have students that want to come back because maybe they've gone through having a stroke or an illness, and they need to retrain. They need to learn about a new job field. They need to develop their organizational skills again. And so we have a really unique opportunity at the community colleges, both as the DSPS, where we're working directly with the student, and as you're working with students in your classes to help start closing those gaps and allowing students to shine, allowing them to show what they can do, rather than focusing on what the deficits are, what the areas of difficulty are. So, in terms of rights, I taught an entire 4-unit class on disability law. I won't take that much time here today, obviously. But students have a right to equal access. They have a right to show what they can do and to really have the barriers that are in place removed so that they can demonstrate that. I think one of my favorite, and I'm going to keep this one real brief, but my favorite analogy is imagine yourself going to a bank, or your favorite restaurant, or a classroom. Now, if there were 3 steps, and you're an able-bodied walking person, you just step up those stairs and you walk right into that room. Now, imagine yourself as a student in a wheelchair. You're approaching your classroom, there are 3 steps. There's no other way of getting into that classroom. Leaves you with only a few choices. 1, you can ask somebody to help you. Can you help me get my chair up? 2, you can get discouraged, turn around, throw your hands up in the air, and roll away. 3, maybe you're really strong and capable physically, and you're able to pop yourself up those stairs and get in there. But you're using a lot more effort to get yourself in independently. The accommodations that we talk about are things like the ramp that gets you into that classroom. It allows the students equal access with the same level of effort as another student, without having to have somebody do for them, and without being just told, well, you just can't, go away. In terms of responsibilities, our students have a responsibility to self-identify. If a student knows they have a disability and they're asking for accommodations, it's their responsibility to step into the process and say, I have a disability and I need help. DSPS is the place to get that help, okay? So students need to come to us. They need to bring us documentation of their disability. They need to work with us to make sure that we can see what the disability is and what their needs are, so that we can then communicate the students' needs, their accommodation needs, with instructors. Students sometimes don't know what they are. I can't tell you how many 18-year-olds especially, straight out of high school, I say, tell me a little about your disability. And they say, well, what has worked and hasn't for you? I don't know, my mom always did that for me. Okay? This is oftentimes the first point at which these young adults are learning about themselves in many ways, but especially when it comes to their disability, and learning that disability is not a dirty word. It is a natural part of life. And it is just another area where you look at where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and you start figuring out what you need in order to succeed. Students also have the responsibility to, once they've requested services, to follow through and to communicate with their instructors, to communicate with us, let us know what's going on. DSPS's role is really to be the ones to hold any private documentation, to evaluate what the students' needs are, and to make a prescription, if you will, for accommodations. When we send out accommodation letters or when we communicate with you about accommodations, those aren't just suggestions or recommendations or if you feel like it. Those are more like a prescription. Think about it. As an instructor, you may receive an accommodation and you may not agree with it, or you may have concerns about it. Just like a pharmacist might have a concern about a prescription that they get, a medication that they've seen. It's then your responsibility as an instructor to communicate with us. And that's what we ask of you, is to say, hey, I've got some concerns. There may be classes in which what we've said, we don't know, we're not experts on your class. There may be times when what we've recommended, what we've set out as an accommodation, may have some unintended consequences in a specific type of class. And so you want to communicate with us so that we can make any adjustments that are necessary, or so that we can figure out a way for you to work with us and work around, okay, so that we can all come to a fair and equal approach. Our asks, sort of the things that I, as a DSPS coordinator and long-term counselor, I've been doing this for 20 years, I think, between here, another community college, and a university. But sort of one of my asks is that when you are communicating with us, the thing that I hate to hear is, I have one of your students here. These are not my students, these are our students. These young people, older people, middle of the road folks, these are our students as a community. And this is one of the things that I really want to emphasize, because a student's disability does not put them into an other category. They are not suddenly less than as a student. They have additional resources and supports available potentially, but they are still our students as a group. And I really encourage you to think of them as your student in your class who happens to have a disability, and this additional resource that you can access. On sort of a day-to-day operational, when we ask for assistance in finding things like a note taker in a classroom, it's really helpful if you're having difficulty finding somebody, if you communicate with us, so that we can get in there and make sure that these students are receiving the accommodations that they need in order to be successful. When I see a student who has followed through, done everything they're supposed to do, requested accommodations, and we've sent emails and communications, and there's no note taker in a class, and now we're 3 weeks in, and 4 weeks in, and 5 weeks in. I've been known to show up in class every once in a while, just to say, hey, I just want to touch base and see what's going on. But if you're having difficulty identifying a note taker, please let us know. We have some tips and tricks. And also, if you're having issues or if you have questions about other things, do let us know. We've got great people in our office. Exams, make sure you're getting them to us in a timely fashion if we're administering them for you. And do let us know. I think the main thing to keep in mind here is that we are dealing with a wonderfully diverse student population in every way, shape, and form. There are so many people and so many resources, and each of these students has their own gift to bring, their own strengths, and so we want to really look at them as these strong individuals that they are, rather than just a sum total of their deficits. I've had great experiences with a lot of you. This is the beginning of my 4th year here, and I look forward to many, many more, and I think my time is up, so thank you very much.
Next, we'll have our greetings from our shared governance constituency groups and leaders. So if we can get our faculty union, classified senate, SEIU, and Local 39 reps. And so while they're coming up, I'm going to change hats or change roles. Hello, my name is Cleavon Smith, your District Academic Senate President. And I would just like to share in my last year, my last term as DA as president, how grateful I am to have served in this position, and to also share with you some of my excitement about the work that we have coming up in this academic year. I would like to just acknowledge, first and foremost, the 4 college senate presidents, Maria Rivas from Merritt College, Donald Moore from Laney, Kelly Purnell from Berkeley City, and Rochelle Olive from College of Alameda. I have been extremely fortunate to work with the 4 of them over the last year, or more than that actually, and just wanted to share with you all that some of the goals, some of the areas that we will be making our goals this year and inviting input from the faculty to help us refine the specifics of these areas are distance education, working on some of the administrative and college procedures and policy development around distance education, governance, and really taking advantage of this year's opportunity with additional reassign for our college senate execs so that we can be a lot more responsive as a body and contributing to the deliberations of the decisions made in our district on behalf of our students in our classroom. And finally, the last area is increased direct classroom support. And as we look at direct classroom support and just really advocating for what happens in the classroom and really making sure that at our governance level conversations, we are always mindful of the student experience, always mindful of the teaching and learning spaces that we have at the colleges, and making sure that we don't allow ourselves to fall into the trap of trickle-down governance, trickle-down budgeting. And so this idea that if we have our stronger administrative teams, then that will trickle down to the classroom, but actually advocating for direct classroom support and making sure that our budgets actually reflect our values. And so, and also with this increased reassigned time, our Senate presidents be working on standard operating procedures so that we can ensure transition for other college faculty to step into some of these roles. So I really invite you all to participate, get to know your college exec, participate on your college exec, those district committees that you are participating in, make sure that you are communicating that back to the colleges, and have a fabulous year.
Good morning. I'd first like to start out by thanking Miriam and Cleavon in his previous hat for organizing today's activities, and to all of you for taking your time to come here this morning. I'm happy to see Trustees Bonilla and Handy here this morning, and as always, I look forward to hearing Chancellor Laguerre's remarks, wherever he went. I'm Jennifer Shanoski, the president of the Peralta Federation of Teachers, AFT Local 1603. We are the union that represents all 1,000 full-time and part-time faculty in the district. That's all teachers, counselors, and librarians. I would like to thank the faculty for entrusting me with leading the PFT in what is sure to be a pivotal year. I feel very privileged to represent the faculty in this capacity. We have a number of wins to be really proud of coming out of last year. These include across-the-board raises, progress toward achieving part-time salary parity, seniority in our rehire pool, and maintenance of health benefits. Speaking of those raises, PFT continues to press the district to try and get those retro paychecks and salary increases implemented as soon as possible. We are definitely eager to receive them after all of our hard work. While we celebrate these gains, we must also direct our attention toward the many struggles of the coming year. Nationally, we have a Supreme Court that has a case in front of them that threatens to debilitate the labor movement. We have an economy and a culture that privileges the interests of the wealthiest over the rest of us. And as all this is happening, white supremacists are marching in our streets and are supported by the highest levels of government. Here at Peralta, we have a district office that is circumventing faculty input in hiring decisions, putting a number of interim administrators in around the district, and grabbing the lion's share of the budget, more than any of the individual colleges. Meanwhile, on the campuses where we're actually serving our students, we have inadequate facilities with garden hoses, continuing to drain the leaks in ceilings, mold abatement, starting the week before classes, and an extreme number of class cuts happening the week before classes start. These challenges require that we organize to be our best, and I would argue that our union, the Peralta Federation of Teachers, offers the best opportunity to all of us to do that, to do our part. By coordinating our efforts through our local, we can fight more effectively, both for our broad progressive principles and our interests as Peralta faculty. In order to do that, we must work together, both within our union and with our sisters and brothers of the Academic Senate and Locals 39 and 1021. Happily, we have an excellent core of elected PFT leaders to help us accomplish these goals. I'm really excited that the PFT has a number of newly elected faculty members, many of whom are here today, and I would like to introduce, so if you'll stand up when I call your names. Jeff Sinceri, who is a COA history instructor and the new grievance officer. Kimberly King, a Laney psychology instructor and our new diversity rep. Brad Beluchian, who is a former Laney, now Merit biology instructor and our new part-time rep. Hillary Altman, a communications instructor from Merit and the new Merit rep. Sheila Metcalf-Tobin, an art instructor from Merit and a new Merit rep. Let me see them. Josh Boatwright, BCC librarian and new BCC rep. And David Jones, from here at Laney, culinary arts instructor and the new Laney rep. And these folks join the executive council members that have been serving in the past and were elected again. And that's Taesoon Park, math instructor from Merit, and our vice president, Rick Greenspan, COA auto technology instructor, and our treasurer, Matt Goldstein, past PFT president and humanities instructor at COA, now secretary, Peter Brown, our machine technology instructor here at Laney and CTE rep, Mary Shaughnessy, counselor at COA, and Maurice Jones, English instructor at COA, who are our COA reps. I'm almost done. Ann McMurdo, counselor at at Laney, and our Laney rep, and then Scott Hoshida, who is an English instructor at BCC, I saw today, and a BCC rep. This mostly voluntary executive council has made the commitment to work toward making a better Peralta. Working alongside of us are PFT's dedicated office staffers, some of whom you met out front, Anna Roy, Kayla Lewis, and Patricia Dudley. Our executive council meets twice a month. We also will be holding regular general membership and chapter meetings throughout the semester. Dates for those will be sent to you early next week, and we encourage all faculty to attend and participate. We need all faculty right now to stand up and be heard. We need all faculty to know that the PFT is their union, is your union, because you have made a conscious effort to participate. A wise woman recently asked a group of her students, not me, are you destroyers or are you builders? We can complain and we can lament. We can just destroy what exists in front of us. Or we can focus and work, and we can build something better and something positive. The PFT has made a commitment to build, and we need all faculty members to participate in that process. Today, this afternoon, we'll be hosting a workshop from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in room B130. And we'll start by introducing your reps and talking about the gains that we've made, the work we've done over the summer. And then we'd like to invite faculty to come and participate and build and brainstorm on goals for the coming year so that together we can decide what our union looks like going forward. Thank you all for your time, and I wish you a great year.